Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Tin Man Score Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'll be reacting to my second scary story teller channel, and it's Shining Gold Tales. And the video that I'll be watching is 4 True Chilling Retail Store Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okie dokie, here we go.
This happened a few years ago now,
Okay.
but it still scares and angers me like it happened yesterday. I was working at a store down the street from my high school while I was still a student there.
Right.
I was in my last year, and I was around 17 years old. It was actually my first job, and I really liked it. Maybe it was the freedom that comes with having a steady income source, or it could have been that I really got along well with my coworkers.
That's good because sometimes young kids today don't like to be working in these retail outlet type stores because you either don't get paid enough money to do it, the co-workers you're working with suck sometimes, they might have a boss with a negative attitude, or you're in an area that's known for crime related activity. That's why there's people like me that are doing YouTube or TikTok, because they don't have to stress over getting up at a certain time period and going to work. But sometimes you gotta take jobs like this in order to make ends meet. But anyway, let's continue with this story and see what happens next.
One of the guys that I worked with was Jamie. He was my age, but he went to a different high school. There were 2 schools in the area. One was the public school, and the other was Catholic. I went to the public school, and Jamie went to the Catholic one. So we had different groups of friends, although we did have some friends in common. You may think that the Catholic school kids would be really tame, but that wasn't true where I come from. The guys from the Catholic school were some real troublemakers. Drinking, partying, and even some petty crime.
Yeah, you would think their parents sent them to these Catholic schools just so they could be straightened out and brush up on some Bible learning stuff. Nope. They just want to act out and get in trouble when they get out of that school and drink. Now, some of them don't do that, of course, but if you got people that go to that school that act mean towards others and drink, they need to go to one of them other private learning academies that handle youth like that.
I'm not sure why, but for some reason that's the way it was. Jamie and I got along really well at first. He was a smaller guy with shaggy hair and a lip ring. He had an edgy punk rock style, and he was known as one of the best skateboarders around. He was even sponsored by a local skate shop, but I'm pretty sure they just gave him free t-shirts and stuff, no real money. We were into the same kind of music, which was a big part of my life at the time. Still is, actually. We also lived pretty close to each other, so I would often give him a ride home after we got off from work at the same time. Our neighborhood was around 20 minutes from work, and there was no really direct public transit route, so he always tried to time his shifts to go with me. One time, I was giving him a ride. We were listening to music and just talking about random stuff. At one point, we passed my house, and I pointed it out to him. He was really impressed because my parents have a really nice place, for our neighborhood anyway.
Okay, I would not even point out where you live at to someone you just met, because you never know, they might try to sneak into it while you guys are going on vacation or while you're sleeping and steal stuff. But I was just guessing at this point, so let's just keep on trucking.
He, on the other hand, lived in the poorer part of the neighborhood. I think his building was some kind of co-op or subsidized housing. Not that I have a problem with that, but it is relevant to the story. A few weeks later, we were working late together, and I was planning to give Jamie a ride home as usual. After we knocked off from work, we walked to my car, which was in the dark parking lot. When we got close, 3 guys walked out from the darkness. They were wearing hoodies with surgical face masks, so I couldn't tell who they were. The 2 of us froze and just stood there. The 3 guys were blocking the path to the car. One of them held a knife in his hand. He seemed to be the leader of the gang, and he told us to empty our pockets. We did what he said. All I had was my phone, and maybe $20 in cash and change. Jamie just had his phone, and even less cash. His phone was an older iPhone with a green case and a slightly cracked screen. It probably wasn't worth much anyway. The guys seemed angry when they saw how little we had. It was like they were expecting more. I didn't know why, because we were just a couple of high school kids. Why would we have anything?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like their parents are going to be giving them brand new stuff all the time. And they're working at a store that barely pays anything to afford new stuff, like iPhones and other expensive electronics. At this point, I would have been grabbing my stuff and running away from them.
Either way, they took our phones and disappeared. For some reason, they didn't take my car keys. Needless to say, I was really shaken up at the time, so it didn't even strike me as odd. Once they were gone, Jamie and I got into the car and started to discuss what we should do. I wanted to drive to the police station, but he disagreed. I had never experienced anything like this before, but Jamie was a bit rougher than me, and he told me that reporting the incident would just make it worse.
No, it won't make it worse. You let the police know, then they could track down people with your phones. And they probably already spent the cash by the time they find them, too, since it was like pocket change to them. Because if you don't do nothing, them criminals are going to be still on the loose trying to rob other people.
I didn't know what to do, so I went along with it and simply dropped Jamie off, then went home. The next week, after I had some time to think about it, I decided to report the incident. I still didn't have a new phone yet, so I went to the store to speak with Jamie, since I knew he was working. When I got there, I saw him in one of the aisles, and he was looking at his phone. I was shocked to see that he was staring at a green iPhone, just like the one that was supposedly stolen.
Okay, red flags will be going off my head. How in the world did he get his phone back? Unless either those crooks dropped it and he found it, or he's with them.
I was confused for a few seconds, and then everything made sense. Jamie was in on it with the masked guys from before. When I got closer, he quickly put the phone in his pocket and turned to me. I confronted him right then and there. He tried to deny it initially. He said it was a new phone, and he got it after we were robbed. I knew he was lying, so I asked to see it. He refused. That was all the confirmation that I needed. He knew that if I saw it, I would notice the cracked screen, and then he wouldn't be able to deny it anymore. I stormed out of there and went to the police. To this day, no arrests were made. I ended up working with Jamie for another few months before I found a new job. I still get angry when I think about this incident. That guy set me up after I drove him home from work at least once a week. I hope I never see him again.
Oh man, I would have been punching him in the darn face. Because how can you set somebody up that's giving you a ride from work to home? I mean, I get he's living in like a rougher neighborhood, but golly, you shouldn't have scared this person to death. And I would have been saying, bull crap, if we were both robbed, you wouldn't have your phone right now. So where are your friends at? Because I want mine back. But he's definitely the type of person that will end up going somewhere bad in the afterlife if he don't change his ways quick. But that just makes me mad too. But I'm just glad that the person telling the story did not get deleted because we wouldn't hear the story. But let's get to story number 2.
I used to work the late shift at a large big box store.
Right.
I had been working there for 5 years at the time, and the job was pretty easy. I would mainly stock shelves, and it was all really automatic. I knew where everything was meant to go, so I was really able to go on autopilot and just wait for my shift to end. It was around 10:30 at night in January. The holiday season was winding down, so the store was a little quieter than what I was used to for the last few months. There were other employees there as well, but it was a big store, and I did feel very alone. I was at the front of the store stocking shelves. I had my headphones in, and I was listening to a podcast. My manager would have gotten mad if she caught me, but on the late shift, a lot of things are let slide. There was a large window next to me that looked out onto the parking lot, which was mostly empty. I should also mention that it was a particularly cold night, and the snow from earlier in the day made the roads really unappealing. That could be part of the reason that the store was so empty. Suddenly, I heard a knock on the window. I turned around and took out my headphones. There was a man standing there. He was around 40 years old and wore a large parka with his hood pulled over his head. There was no entrance around there, so I had no idea what he could want. I just said, "Go around, we're still open," although I have no idea if he could even hear me.
I wouldn't have not done that. I would just run back in and get another employee to look at this guy or call security or police on him because it seems like he's up to no good.
He didn't move, but I put my headphones back in and got back to work. After another few minutes, I heard another knock, but this time it was louder. In fact, it sounded like he was trying to smash his way in. I turned around and looked at him, and when I did, I noticed he was holding something. I couldn't tell what it was, but it looked like a metal pole of some kind, and he was hitting the window with it. I guess those windows were pretty strong, because the glass didn't break. I stood there in terror, watching him for about 30 seconds. Then he stopped and locked eyes with me. I was shaking with terror. Just then, he raised his right arm and made the cutthroat motion across his neck while staring right at me.
See, I knew he was up to no good. He probably had a metal crowbar or a pipe, and he's trying to break in to the store just so he can get this employee. Hence why he made a cutting motion across his neck. This would be a good time to call the cops before he runs away.
Turned and walked away after that. When I had a chance to process what had just happened, I told my manager, and we called the police. I was way too scared to let it go. When the cops arrived, they reviewed the security footage, but the image of the man was unclear. He walked out of frame, and we were never able to see which, if any, car he used to leave the parking lot. My shift was almost over, so I left early, and the police officers walked me to my car just in case. We didn't see the man again that night. A few weeks later, the incident had faded from my mind. You see some crazy things on the night shift. That one was pretty over the top, but as time went on, I chalked it up to some kind of sick but harmless joke. I was working the same late shift again, and when I finished, I left the store and started walking to my car across the parking lot. It was dark out, but the lampposts were bright. There were several other cars in the parking lot. Most of them belonged to the other employees, but there was one car near mine that I didn't recognize. A man stood next to the car facing away from me. He wore a large coat with the hood pulled up, so I couldn't see much. It wasn't as cold as the other night, but it was still winter. As I got closer, the man turned around and started walking towards me. It was then that I recognized him as the man from before.
Oh, crap. I was just beginning to think that this might have been one crazy incident. The guy might have been mentally disturbed. Nope. He came back. Now he's going to come after this female employee again. I don't know why, but you need to turn around and go back to the store quick before he grabs you. But I would like to know how in the world he know which car to park right next to that was hers. Unless he saw the cops walking her to her car and memorized it. This is getting creepier by the minute.
He glared at me with intense hatred in his eyes. I could see that he was holding something in his hand. It was some kind of a metal pipe, or possibly a crowbar, and I'm pretty sure that's what he was using to hit the window before. I absolutely freaked out. I knew I needed to make a decision fast. It was either my car or back to the store. I chose my car, and then I ran there as fast as I could. I made it in and locked my door, then started my engine and drove out of there. I have no idea how close that guy was to catching me, because I didn't bother to look back. I pulled over and called the police after a few minutes. We met back at the parking lot, but the man was gone. After this incident, I quit my job because I was too scared that the guy would come for me again. I still have no idea what he wanted from me, but my guess is that it was a case of mistaken identity, like he had unfinished business with someone, and he thought it was me. Either that, or he was just crazy. Either way, I had to get out of there, because I'd be looking over my shoulder every minute otherwise. That's no way to live.
Yeah, no, that ain't no good way to live. Being in fear all your life. I'm glad you quit this job because you don't have to deal with this dude showing up again. But man, I wish the cops can find this dude and get him taken off the streets because he's got one serious anger problem, it seems like. That's my guess. But I'm just glad that she was able to get away from that incident unscathed.
I was doing some grocery shopping one night. Walmart was the only place open at this hour, so that's where I went. I would shop there often, and I always prefer to shop at night in order to avoid the crowds.
Oh, absolutely. That's always the perfect time to go because you can go in, get your stuff, and not even worry about accidentally bumping into other people's shopping carts or trying to navigate through aisles without people standing there talking to other people.
There's something about those fluorescent lights that really make me want to get out of there as fast as possible. I walked up and down the aisles for several minutes and hardly saw anyone on my way. There were a few employees stocking shelves and a few other shoppers, but that was pretty much it. That is until I saw a group of guys. There were 3 of them, and I think they were all around high school age. I only took a quick look, but their image is still etched into my memory because of what happened that night. I went about my shopping for a few more minutes, maybe 15 or 20 minutes actually. Suddenly, I heard a loud bang out of nowhere, and then screaming. I was pretty sure it was a gunshot, although I'd never heard one before, so I wasn't sure. I stood there like a deer in the headlights, and I knew I should run, but my feet wouldn't move.
Yeah, I would be running because you hear a gunshot, seems like someone walked in to delete somebody or they're there to rob the place. And you don't want to be caught in all this. I would be calling the cops quietly and get them over there quick, but also sneak out either the back way or around the media section if they're not back there.
A few long minutes went by, and then I started to hear sirens. When I heard that, my legs sprung into action, and I hid behind a shelf. After another 10 minutes, I was greeted by a police officer who escorted me out of the store and onto the sidewalk. There were 10 to 20 other people there. Some of them were employees, others were customers. There were also several police officers, and they were slowly interviewing each of us. When it was my turn, I told the officer what happened to me. I told him that I heard a loud bang and then screaming, and that was all. They let me go home after that. I found out later by watching the news that there was an attempted robbery, and there was a shot fired. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, and they didn't show a picture of the suspects because they were underage. I've always suspected that group of guys as the perpetrators. Maybe that's judgmental of me, but I didn't see anyone else in that store who could have been underage. I'm pretty sure that night I walked past someone who would fire a gun at another human being minutes later. It was a really terrifying experience, and I still haven't gotten over it completely, even though it happened almost 20 years ago.
Underage, you say? Just a bunch of punks thinking that they can try to rob Walmart to get some money. But thankfully somebody called the cops because if they didn't, you never know what them underage kids would have done. And plus, that would be nerve-wracking to think that you just walk by people that might end up starting a robbery fiasco. But I know those kids will be going to a juvie prison if they're underage and get them straightened out because if they want to keep acting like this, they're going to be in jail for a long period of time.
I've been working as a second shift shelf stalker at my local Walmart for the last month or so.
Right.
That means that I occasionally get to deal with some creepy customers near the end of my shift. Normally I can sense when someone or something isn't right, but that's not the case for this story, unfortunately. I was told to stock the shelves in the area by the pharmacy desk. That was fine by me, because not many people come to that side of the store.
Yeah, I would agree with that because every time we went to shop at Walmart when it was getting kind of late, there's hardly anybody over by the pharmacy or toy aisles or garden center. It's usually mostly media, grocery, clothes, and towards the front where the cashiers are at. That's it. Creepy folks do show up there, and you always got to be alert for them.
Especially once the pharmacy closes. As I was stocking the aisle with the cold medicine, a girl came up to me and said, "You seem like a fun person to talk to." In my mind, I thought, okay, weird, but whatever.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
But on the outside, I put on my best retail smile and said, "Sure, what can I help you with?" The girl proceeded to say that she had a bet going with her dad, and that if she wins, she'd get $100, and she was wondering if I could help her out. Me being the good-hearted person that I am, I said that I would help. Couldn't be that hard, right? The girl then went to get her guardian, who was a middle-aged woman, and she introduced herself. The lady then explained to me that if I wanted to help the girl get the $100, I'd have to watch a 20-minute video with them. Obviously, I couldn't do that while I was working, so they asked me what time I got off and what I was doing afterwards. I let them know that I got off at 11 and that I was going to drive home with my mom because we both work the same shift at the same store and she doesn't drive. Then the lady said, "Okay, well, maybe we can meet at the Southside McDonald's at around 11:15 tonight to watch the video. Do you mind if I get your phone number so we can call you?" At this point in time, I was completely oblivious to what was happening, so I gave them my phone number like a complete idiot. The lady then thanked me and said they'd call me at around 11:15, and that we could go from there.
Yeah, no, this is why you don't hand your phone number to strangers, because if you don't know them, then don't do it. Something's very fishy going on here. I'll be going to the manager and to your mom and tell them what happened.
After that, they walked away. I soon realized what had just happened and what I just did. I then went on my last break and told my mom what happened, all while sobbing and freaking out. We decided to go tell management about the incident. They decided that when my mom and I were done work for the night, we would be escorted to our car for extra safety. After this, we told our supervisor what happened and described the individuals to him. He said he'd dealt with these same people before at his previous job. Supposedly in the same night that I was approached by these people, one of my coworkers encountered them as well, with the same spiel and everything. As my mom and I were being escorted out, I got a phone call from a number that I didn't recognize, and they didn't leave a voicemail. I started to freak out again, and we decided to go to the cops just to be safe. We told the officers the story and gave them the phone number that had called me. Then he said that it was really weird for this to be happening in our town, which is relatively small. About an hour later, I got a call from the officer who I had talked to. He told me some more information about the people that approached me. He called the number that I gave him and posed as a friend of mine to get more information. When he did that, he found out that they were trying to recruit me to work for them by traveling and earning money. It seemed even more sketchy when I was told that the group had a website and a YouTube channel. The officer also told me that the group is a pyramid scheme, which is illegal in the US and elsewhere. Basically, if you don't know what that is, it's a form of investment where a paying participant has to recruit 2 or more participants. Once these 2 people have been recruited, the people who talked them into joining get paid more money by the newer people. The interesting thing was the fact that I didn't get a creepy vibe from these customers. They were generally nice and friendly people. However, they almost seemed too nice to not be up to something. This happened to me a few days ago, and I'm still having panic attacks about it. The managers at my store are hopefully going to gather us all together at some point and give us some tips for if it happens again. It's currently not part of our training, but I think it should be.
Well, thank God that this officer pretended to be her friend and got that information, because that's very creepy to find out that these 2 individuals showed up trying to coerce this employee to join their group, basically, without her even knowing it. That would be creepy. And if it's illegal to have operate in the United States, I'm surprised the FBI haven't cracked down on what they're doing and shut everything down. But anyway, hopefully that does get settled to where you don't hear stories about this anymore. And like this girl said, they get better training from their supervisor staff about situations like this so they can be prepared to someone else walks in and does the same thing. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Gold Tales reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and that's a wrap. Have a nice day, y'all.